The 5 pillars of brain health are fitness, sleep, nutrition, stress management, and brain training. Hundreds of studies have shown that each of those 5 pillars of brain health can improve the capacity of memory networks in your brain. And if you combine these in your daily routines, you can significantly improve your brain function in the short term, and you reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease decades later.
Dr. Majid Fotuhi, welcome to the show, my friend. What are the most common forms of dementia that you see?
Dementia means cognitive decline to the point when a person cannot function independently. If you have memory problems that may be severe, that could be a condition called mild cognitive impairment. But if you can't pay your bills, you can't drive, then you reach the threshold for dementia. Dementia can have many different causes. It could be due to
How much should we be walking every day for brain health?
Several studies have shown that if you walk 3,000 to 5,000 steps a day, you reduce the amount of tau and amyloid in your brain. One study showed that walking 10,000 steps a day reduces the risk of Alzheimer's disease by 50%. The things that are good for your brain health are also good for your heart health, your kidney health, your liver health, your skin, and your sex life. These because your brain is in direct communication with the rest of your body. If you have heart problems, your brain suffers. If you don't have enough blood to your brain, it suffers. I'm going to tell you 4 things that are extremely important for your performance in bed, both in terms of actual erection and sexual function and libido. Are you interested?
Dr. Majid Fotuhi, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Of course. I'm very excited to talk about all things brain health, the 5 pillars of brain health as presented in your new book. I don't know how much you know about my backstory, but I'm deeply passionate about brain health, about preventative neurology. I had a loved one. My mother had dementia for many years. She had Lewy body dementia. So I've made it my life's mission of sorts to evangelize all the myriad ways that we can protect our brains through the lifespan. And I'm very excited to celebrate your new book, which I'm assuming we're going to get into, how to make our brains invincible.
Yes.
Or at least strive towards that goal.
Yes. We have now compelling evidence that we can significantly reduce the age-related cognitive decline. We really can do something about preventing dementia. We shouldn't think of being victims that we eventually get demented when we get older. We now know that with aging, there may be a little decline, maybe 3%, 4%. You may forget names, you may miss appointments, but you should aim to be sharp and independent way into your 80s. A very small percentage of people have genetic factors for late life Alzheimer's disease. Their early onset Alzheimer's disease has a strong genetic component. So if you have parents who develop Alzheimer's disease in 50s, that will be concerning. However, if you have parents who develop Alzheimer's disease or different forms of dementia in their 80s or 90s, you have a very small risk. The risk is less than if you have poor sleep on a regular basis or if you have high blood pressure. Lifestyle factors make a huge impact on whether you stay sharp or whether you lose your marbles.
No, I love this. It's such a wonderful place to start. Maybe for listeners who are not super familiar with the different subtypes of dementia, what are the most common forms of dementia that you see?
Dementia means cognitive decline to the point when a person cannot function independently. If you have memory problems that may be severe, that could be a condition called mild cognitive impairment. But if you can't pay your bills, you can't drive, then you reach the threshold for dementia. Dementia can have many different causes. It could be due to strokes, Parkinson's disease, Lewy body dementia, too many head injuries, too much alcohol. They all can shrink the brain to the point that a person cannot live independently. There is one type of dementia called Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is characterized by accumulation of these proteins in the brain called amyloid and tau. And when they accumulate excessively, they create a lot of inflammation and brain atrophy, and a person may start with having memory problems, but then they get confused and they can't take care of themselves, which means they reach the point of dementia. So Alzheimer's disease is a form of dementia. The different forms of dementia depend on different factors. Parkinson's disease-related dementia or Lewy body dementia affect the parts of the brain for walking and sleep, as well as cognitive functions. There's a form called frontotemporal dementia that causes a lot of behavioral problems and language problems.
Isn't that what Bruce Willis has?
Yes. And they can develop aphasia, difficulty speaking. And then the Alzheimer's disease in general has a strong preventable component. Unlike Lewy body dementia, which, by the way, if you do the 5 pillars of brain health, you're less likely to develop it. And when you develop it, you have a slower rate of progression. Well, with Alzheimer's disease, we can significantly reduce the damage that happens in the brain through these 5 pillars of brain health.
Now, is it possible at this point to say that the non-Alzheimer's types of dementia are also potentially preventable, or we just don't have that data yet? Like when it comes to, for example, vascular dementia or frontotemporal dementia, is there a path towards prevention for those subtypes or not at this juncture?
For some of them, yes. For some of them, a little bit. Vascular dementia can definitely be prevented. Vascular dementia happens when somebody has had multiple strokes, and 80% of strokes are preventable. Stroke is the number 1 cause of disability in the United States, and is the 2nd leading cause of death in the world. And more than 80% of strokes can be prevented through lifestyle modifications. It's sad to me that a condition that could be prevented is affecting such a huge portion of our population. As a neurologist, I've taken care of thousands of patients with stroke, and I tell you, it's very sad. Somebody was working full time, and then suddenly they can't speak. Suddenly they can't move the right side of the body. And if they have a small stroke, they do recover. But when you have a large stroke the size of an apple, then recovery is not always full, and a person has a lot of long-standing deficits. And the sad part is that it didn't have to happen.
What is a stroke? It's a blood clot, right?
So the most common form of stroke is when a blood vessel is occluded by a blood clot. It's called ischemic stroke. And ischemic strokes happen when people have risk factors, such as high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, smoking, sedentary lifestyle. These are the common risk factors for stroke. And when somebody has multiple risk factors for a long time, then they reach the threshold for a complete blockage of a blood vessel, and then the part of the brain that's deprived of the blood dies, and the person has symptoms depending which part of the brain died. So when people have multiple strokes and reach dementia, well, that could be prevented. Now, the frontotemporal dementia or Lewy body dementia are not as easy to prevent, and when they happen, they are more difficult to control. However, several studies have shown that even patients with Lewy body dementia or frontotemporal dementia would have a slower progression of their symptoms if, for example, they exercise a lot. Exercise has been shown to significantly slow the progression of Parkinson's disease and can help with symptom progression in Lewy body dementia.
Wow.
Whereas the Lewy body dementia and frontotemporal dementia may be affected by 5 to 10% in lifestyle modifications. Alzheimer's disease, more than 80% could be prevented with lifestyle preventions. That's why I think that people should aim to become a brain superager. Brain superager is someone who reaches the age of 90 and is sharp and independent. That's what I plan to do. Because I know for a fact that most of the things that affect my brain are preventable. Stress, poor sleep, sedentary lifestyle, poor diet, all those things can make a smaller dents in the brain. And every day you can have microscopic changes, but over decades they accumulate to significant atrophy in the brain. And if you don't do them, then your brain stays healthy. It's kind of like your teeth. If you take care of your teeth in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and so on, you get to your 70s and 80s and you have a nice set of teeth. In old days, when people got to 80s, I don't know what percentage, but half of them would have dentures. Because with normal aging, there will be decays in the teeth, there will be gum disease, and people would lose their teeth. But we know that those could be prevented. We are in the same stage when it comes to Alzheimer's disease. We have learned what things it could do to take care of your brain, and we know what kind of things it could do to improve your brain performance. And if you do those things, you get better in short term, and you're on the path for a higher brain reserve, your higher brain function when you get to your 80s.
I mean, it sounds to me as intuitive as maintaining a car. but people tend to have this sense of fatalism when it comes to their brain health. Like, oh, it's hereditary, or it's in my genes, or my mom had it, or my grandparents had it. But this is such empowering information. So let's talk about the 5 pillars of brain health. What are those 5 pillars?
The 5 pillars of brain health are fitness, sleep, nutrition, stress management, and brain training. Each of these brain health factors can grow the size of your brain. Hundreds of studies have shown that each of those 5 pillars of brain health can improve the capacity of memory networks in your brain. And if you combine these in your daily routines, you can significantly improve your brain function in the short term, and you reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease decades later.
Wow. So let's unpack them one by one, if you will. Let's start with nutrition. It's one of my favorite topics, and there's a lot of nutrition tends to be controversial. I don't think for people who are fluent in nutrition science, it really is all that controversial. But at least on social media, nutrition can be a controversial, pond to step in, so to speak. So when it comes to the big picture levers with regards to nutrition for brain health, what do you see as being the big needle movers?
To me, it's not controversial, I must say. I've read the literature extensively for the past 30 years, and it's something that I think everybody agrees. I don't think anybody has ever said that highly processed food are good for you. I don't think anybody has ever said that trans fats are good for you. And nobody has ever said that sugary food that increases your glycemic index, how fast your sugar spikes, is good for you. Nobody. Have you ever heard say that?
No.
Okay. So there's no controversy. The controversy comes as to whether you should eat a vegan diet or a keto diet, and whether one is better than the other one. And I agree, it's difficult to establish superiority of the different types of healthy diets. But let's begin with the no-brainer part. Let's begin by the part that's very obvious. Don't eat junk food, period. There's no controversy about that. Don't eat highly processed food. And if you go to these fast food chains, unless you order salad, you're not getting high quality food. I mean, this is something that we all agree on. In my opinion, doing that alone, it moves the needle the most. Now, if you put the junk food aside and you're debating whether you go keto diet or vegan diet, just do it. Just do it. There's enough evidence that either one of them is good that you won't be wrong. As long as you don't eat the food that increases inflammation in your brain and reduce blood flow in the brain and affect the natural cleaning and rinsing that happens in the brain, you're good. And I don't blame people who say, well, what do you want me to do? I tell you what I do. I have a diet I like. I find it difficult to follow a vegan diet. I would find it hard to just eat meat and avoid fruits and vegetables. I think I love the taste of fruits and vegetables. I mean, I love watermelon. I love blueberries. I don't want to live longer if I can't enjoy this food.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do the diet that appeals to you because you're going to eat it for a long time. And don't change your diet based on which of the healthier diets that have been promoted. Pick the one you like. I think that's an easy way to make a decision. Because we have to understand that a vegan diet may be good for person A, but not so much for person B, because we have different genetic backgrounds and our, GI tract and microbiome is different. So there's no universal diet that's good.
Not just that, but we also have there are varying levels of attention that people are willing to pay to their diets, right? Like a diet, from my vantage point, a diet as extreme and restrictive as a vegan diet that eschews all animal products. I mean, you've got to pay extra attention to where you're getting your protein from, where you're getting your vitamin B12 from. There's mounting data on the value of choline, which is found primarily in animal source foods and the like. So, like, to hedge your bets, like, just eat a variety of foods and don't exclude any large food group.
I agree with you. I eat a Mediterranean diet, which is basically a healthy diet. I eat fruits and vegetables throughout the day. I have a small lunch, and in dinner I usually have some sort of meat with some vegetables and small amounts. I think quantity is an important factor as well. It's fair to say that if you have a vegan diet, you have extreme low risk of heart attacks. I mean, there is advantages of a vegan diet. But we're not going to go to the controversy with ketogenic diet versus the vegan diet. I think, as you said, enjoy the food. So much of eating is a pleasure of eating. I mean, when you go to a restaurant, enjoy a meal, you're not getting nutrition. You're going there for the joy of tasting different foods, whether it's Indian food or Chinese food or American food or Greek food. Persian food. You do it for the fun of it. And I wouldn't deprive the joy of eating for the sake of living 5 years longer.
Yeah, I mean, to exclude carbs, like what is the famous Persian rice dish? I'm a huge fan.
Yes, so chilo kebab, warma sabzi. I'm Persian and I love the Persian food. We eat regularly. And rice is not the best source of diet because it's high carb. But I used to eat a whole plate of rice with kebab or other things, and I have decided to eat half rice and half vegetables. That's my compromise with korma sabzi or whatever else there is.
I love it. That sounds so good. Are there any foods in particular that you believe are have maybe an outsized benefit to the brain?
Yes, my favorite food with a lot of benefits is actually blueberries. Blueberries are not only high in antioxidants like so many other fruits, but they help to increase levels of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And BDNF is a neuroprotective factor. It's also known as brain fertilizer. The best way to increase BDNF levels is exercise. But certain food, especially blueberries, are high in BDNF. So that's one reason I like BDNF. I like blueberries, and I actually like the taste of them. When I have a bowl of blueberries, I just enjoy sitting there and eating them.
They're so good. They're also a very high volume fruit. Like you can eat a lot of them, and your stomach will probably start hurting before you've consumed even like that significant of a quantity of calories.
Yes. Every fruit has some minerals and vitamins, and you want to have a variety of food, and you want to have the variety of food in different seasons. So, falls and winter when there are more apples, so you can eat more apples, and in the summer when there are more watermelon and honeydew and anything, you can enjoy them because each one of them have their own blend of vitamins and minerals. I wouldn't recommend heavy dose of supplements. I love to get my vitamins from natural sources.
What about when it comes to fats? There's a lot of literature talk about the specific value of extra virgin olive oil to Mediterranean dietary patterns, and then downstream of that you have brain health.
You're right. Many investigators have asked the question, what about the Mediterranean diet is so good? What about it? Which component of the Mediterranean diet seem to be so helpful for brain health? And extra virgin olive oil seems to stand out. Studies show that the amounts of the extra virgin olive oil seems to be a factor in determining the benefits such as better cognitive function and reduced brain aging. But I wouldn't sit down and add loads of extra virgin olive oil. I'll use it for cooking. I think it's best to do many things in moderation than going all out and putting your bets on single intervention. For example, creatinine 20 grams a day has been shown to have benefits for the brain as well. But I wouldn't consume 20 grams of creatine every day thinking that I'll have the best brain and not doing things like exercise, sleep, healthy eating, stress reduction, brain training, because creatine by itself is not going to be a miracle. It's not going to do a magic. The magic is to do multiple things in low levels and stick with it over time. These benefits compound. If you exercise and eat well and sleep well and keep your stress levels down and train your brain, you increase the number of synapses in your brain, you increase the number of blood vessels in your brain becomes healthier. One thing I do, I visualize the brain because I've studied the brain so many years. I've looked at so many brains under slice. I can look at the neighborhoods under a microscope, so to speak. When I see it under a microscope, I see the cells, I see supporting cells. I think of it like a neighborhood in a city. Imagine a neighborhood city, it's very well maintained. The garbage is collected regularly. All the houses take care of their yards. All the traffic lights are clear, visible, and everything is nice and clean. It's not by coincidence. If you don't take care of it, things erode, and each household doesn't if they don't contribute to the atmosphere they create, then things do fall apart. So I look at it as a small neighborhood and how each thing, such as garbage collection and the signs in the street and how clean things are things that affect it. In this case, I'm in charge of the brain neighborhoods in my brain. I know that exercise increases blood flow, reduces inflammation, improves the cleaning system in the brain. So I can just see that as a major factor. And then, the sleeping is like garbage collection, removes all the garbage at night. And nutrition is providing nutrients. So it's like fertilizing the lawns and making sure they're good. And brain training is like, trimming your trees and make sure they all look good in that regard. So in practical terms, the things you do will make your brain neighborhoods more beautiful. I wish people would have an image of their brain and work on improving the beauty of their brain the same way they would look at their face, and they would work on, making sure they have fewer wrinkles and the skin is vibrant and, healthy looking, because you can see it. With brain, you can't see there, but your brain is not static. Your brain is not like an old computer that with aging gets rusty and falls apart. Your brain is a living organ. Your brain has a lot of malleability. Your brain changes every day. Your brain changes every day based on your daily habits. So if you stress a lot, you increase cortisol levels. Cortisol levels are toxic to the hippocampus, the memory part of the brain. If you eat, a hamburger with a big bag of French fries and a gallon of soda, that's like pouring junk all over the brain. And so each of your actions every day make a difference in your brain at a microscopic level. They affect the different neighborhoods in your brain at a microscopic levels. But if you do everything good, your brain will every day get one notch better, and it compounds. And when you're 80, you have a beautiful brain. And if every day you do everything wrong, then you will develop cognitive decline in your 70s, and you will more likely become demented in your 80s. It's not that complicated.
How do you suggest that people keep tabs on their brain health? Because as you mentioned, it's not, you can't see your brain by looking in the mirror.
You can keep track of it. I mean, one thing I have done in my book, The Invincible Brain, is I have a brain fitness calculator. Based on my experiences in seeing patients, I have a questionnaire with 15 questions that gives you an idea of where you are compared to other people in terms of brain health. Questions like eating habits, stress levels, sleeping, and so forth. So that's one way. The other way you can do is just how you feel. Sometimes you're in the zone. Don't you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course.
Like sometimes you feel right, your mind is calm, you feel sharp, you're just happy for no reason. That's a good state of mind. You can call it a state of flow. That's where you want to be. So are you in that state of mind 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a week, or most of the time? Where you feel in charge of things, you're not rushing, you're not running around, you feel confident about your brain functions, you feel good overall because you had a good night's sleep. That's the state of mind you want to be. And that's your measure. You can keep track of it. You give yourself 1 to 10. How optimal was my brain today? you set a criteria for yourself in your own mind about things that matter for you, like how quick were you in thinking, how quick were you in remembering things, how quick were you in getting things done, how quick were you in being organized that day. Give yourself a scale of 1 to 10 and then keep track of it over a week. In fact, I think you should do that for a week or two without any interventions, just to get a sense of where you are. At night before going to sleep, just give yourself a score. And then add one intervention, such as, I'm going to stress less. I'm going to reserve my stress for things that really matter, not for traffic or not for why somebody didn't talk to me as much as they usually do, or minor things, only for major things. And then, after a couple of weeks, add removing junk food as much as possible, cutting junk food by 50%. Set achievable goals. Don't be too ambitious, because then you won't stick with it. And then keep track of yourself. In my book, I talk about these things. I have actually developed an app, the Invincible Brain app, where people would monitor their progress on a weekly basis.
It's very smart. I love the idea of habit stacking, and not biting off more than you can chew at any given time. Medically, when it comes to testing, biomarker tracking, brain imaging, I don't know. You're at the cutting edge of this science, so to speak. When it comes to medically tracking, like what do you recommend?
There has been some exciting discoveries in my field in the past 2 years. For the first time, we have blood biomarkers for footprints of Alzheimer's disease in the brain. You have to keep in mind that when you get to your 80s, you have two sets of issues in your brain. One set of issues are collections of these proteins called amyloid and tau. When they accumulate, they're called amyloid plaques and tau tangles. And then you have this other set of problems that include increased inflammation, reduced blood flow, and poor rinsing and cleaning in the brain. And these are manifestations of lifestyle issues. So you have two sets of issues, both of which affect your brain as you grow older. So now for the first time, we have biomarkers for this more stubborn parts of aging, the plaques and tangles, and we can measure in your blood how much of these plaques and tangles you have in your brain. That's a major breakthrough. So we have a partial image of what's going on in the brain, but nevertheless, it's better than before where we had nothing. So those are good biomarkers to check. However, if you're a healthy person and check the biomarkers and they're high for Alzheimer's disease, that's going to create a lot of anxiety for you. I recommend that instead of checking those biomarkers, make your own standard based on how you feel. After all, that's what you can change. And lifestyle changes have been shown to modify the biomarkers of Alzheimer's disease, but we don't know how much exercise, what specific diet, how much sleep exactly. And there are a lot of clinical trials as we speak. There are at least 100 clinical trials to do different lifestyle interventions and determine which of them can reduce the amyloid and tau in the brain the most. I think exercise is going to win, followed by sleep and nutrition. However, we cannot make a recommendation based on the information we have so far. The information we have so far is that you can definitely improve your brain functions with lifestyle modifications. So let's do that.
And then when it comes to specific biomarkers like blood pressure, metabolic biomarkers, A1C, stuff like that, what do you find to be the big levers?
Yeah. Having a bigger belly is associated with having a smaller hippocampus. Hippocampus is a part of the brain the size of your thumb. You have one on the right, one on the left. This is the memory center of the brain. When you develop Alzheimer's disease, it's because the hippocampus has become smaller from your size of your thumb to the size of your pinky. And you're responsible for much of why that happened. So we can use the size of hippocampus as a biomarker. Many studies have shown that when somebody has a bigger belly, has a smaller hippocampus. When somebody's stressed routinely, they have a smaller hippocampus. When they eat a poor diet, they have a small hippocampus. So the size of hippocampus is a biomarker that can be used to modify lifestyle changes and then see which one worked. I did that myself. In 2016, I put together a 12-week program, which I called the Brain Fitness Program. This program personalizes these 5 pillars of brain health for individual person. So for example, let's say I saw a 72-year-old who has memory loss and has been forgetting things more often, repeating herself more often, and is worried about Alzheimer's disease. And family members say that she's not the same. She has changed. This is not the same wife I had last year. So I would then ask this person, do you have diabetes? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have pain that requires pain medication, which could be sedating? I go over 40 questions with each person. I would then identify all the main medical things that could be affecting their brain, that could be shrinking their brain. And then I would have them work with one of my brain coaches who work on the 5 pillars of brain health. They ask them, how much do you walk every day? We get the number, say, okay, let's increase by 10 minutes. Reasonable, small changes. We ask them about their eating habits. Again, we ask small changes. And so patients who did this 12-week program had cognitive testing at the beginning, at 6 weeks, and at 12 weeks. They also had brain MRIs in the beginning, at 6 weeks, and 12 weeks. Our study showed that people who completed the 12-week program had increased the volume of the hippocampus, so much so we can see on brain MRI with naked eyes. And 84% of them had improved their cognitive functions. These are people in their 70s, early 80s. So our program clearly showed that a 12-week comprehensive program can significantly improve your brain health. Your brain can become about 3 years younger in 12 weeks. Now, this is a group of people who receive intensive comprehensive program in 12 weeks. If you do it on your own pace, you could see results in 6 months or 9 months or so forth. Therefore, I think it's really important to realize that you can change the biology of your brain through factors that we know affect the brain. You can use MRIs or blood tests as biomarkers, but you can also use your own criteria, like how sharp you are, how sharp is your memory, how fast you think, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it perfectly aligns with the data from the FINGER trial, the MAPT subgroup analysis, the SPRINT MIND trial. I mean, when you account for the different modifiable risk factors, I mean, and then there's a synergistic effect. That's incredible. Did you say that you measured your own hippocampus? Or
No, they're my patients, yeah.
Oh, wow. So it's so interesting.
Yeah, one thing I did, my current book is The Invincible Brain, where I talk about this 12-week program and explain everything. My previous book, about 10 years ago, was titled Boost Your Brain. And I worked with a writer to help me with ghostwriting and make sure the writing was perfect. And she was interested to do this herself. So when she started to work with me, she said, can you get a brain MRI for me?
So cool.
I ordered for her. And as she was working with me to write the chapters, she had increased her running. She used to just walk occasionally, and she decided to do a half marathon. She became more conscious about her eating. She became more conscious about her sleeping and everything else. And we did an MRI after 12 weeks. Her hippocampus grew by 5%.
Wow.
And she was like 42 years old.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
How much should we be walking every day for brain health?
I think the more you walk, the better it is. Several studies have shown that if you walk 3,000 to 5,000 steps a day, you reduce the amount of tau and amyloid in your brain. 3,000 to 5,000. I mean, that's not much walk. It's an hour, 2 hours, depending on how fast you walk. And it doesn't have to be all at once. So if you have a job that requires a lot of walking, that's good for you. One study showed that walking 10,000 steps a day reduces the risk of Alzheimer's disease by 50%. So walk as much as you can, and more is better, but don't make it into a major project. Don't add another layer of stress. Make small changes in your daily habits and then build on it gradually.
Walking is incredible because you can scale it almost endlessly.
That's
and
right.
It doesn't build fatigue. It doesn't significantly increase hunger. It doesn't impact recovery. It's really like
There's something about walking that
magic
helps
bullet.
with weight loss as well. Walking is a weight-bearing exercise because you carry your weight. And I think that's why it has a lot of benefits versus other exercises such as cycling, which as much as you you're exercising a lot, but you're not carrying your weight. Walking is an example of weight-bearing exercise, and I think that's why it's so helpful.
What do you make of the data on sauna use and brain health? Is that something that you think is worth integrating, implementing into your lifestyle if you have access to a sauna?
I think it's important to appreciate the 5 pillars of brain health are the most important things that are going to move the needle. There are lots of little things that can be a little helpful. Sauna, cold bath, supplements, tea. These are the things that can move the needle just a little bit. And so if you enjoy doing them. But don't think that if you go to saunas twice a week or 3 times a week, that you'll reduce your risk of Alzheimer's disease significantly. The thing that's going to help the most are those 5 pillars of brain health. These other things are like point 1, point 2. And I wouldn't personally bother to increase how often I take go to sauna because of his brain health benefits. I think one thing that's really helpful is breathing. If you sit down and do slow breathing exercises, you breathe in with the count of 6, hold for the count of 3, and breathe out for a count of 6, and do that for 10 minutes. Research studies have shown that when you do this slow breathing, also known as HRV biofeedback, you increase the levels of amyloid in your brain.
Decrease
the levels of amyloid in your brain. Decrease the levels of amyloid in your brain. That's pretty powerful. Now, this is what I call something that moves the needle. To my knowledge, no study has ever shown that sauna or cold bath would affect levels of amyloid in the brain in humans. But this study that I'm telling you about, it was a randomized control study that showed the slow breathing exercises for 3 months can change the level of amyloids in the brain. That's very powerful.
What do you think is the mechanism there? Is that as a de-stress tool, as a tool to mitigate stress?
When you breathe slowly, you improve the functions of the parasympathetic nervous system. You increase the level of activity in your vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is the link between your body and your brain. And vagus nerve goes to the part of the brain stem, the base of the brain, and then sets the tone for the rest of the brain. And so when you do slow breathing exercises, you're setting the brain rhythm at a more calm and peaceful level. And that reduces cortisol levels, but also increases blood flow and increases the number of connections in the brain. The same applies to meditation.
Wow. That's something that I'm definitely not good at, the meditation side of things. What about sleep? You've touched on the brain's ability to clear itself out, keeping the neighborhood clean, so to speak. I love that metaphor. What do we need to know when it comes to optimizing sleep around the preventative maintenance of the brain?
Sleep helps with the rinsing mechanism in the brain, and so it's very important. Now, what should you do if you have trouble falling asleep or if you wake up multiple times during the night? The most common culprit is stress. A lot of people have difficulty falling asleep because they're worried about things. Same applies for when people wake up in the middle of the night, when they have too many things on their mind. The solution is to reduce the load of the things you worry about. I know this is easier said than done, but so many of our anxieties are self-generated. We worry about the things that may happen, and they may or may not happen, and the consequences are not always as dramatic as we think they will be. Therefore, I recommend that you ask yourself how many of the things you worry about merit your brain being damaged by it. Let me give you a little story. I have 2 daughters who are in college now, and my younger daughter, when she was in elementary school, she had to read a book and write a summary about it. And I saw that she wasn't doing it, so I said, honey, you are supposed to write this summary, and it's due 2 days, and you haven't started reading it. And she said, Dad, you're stressing me out, and that's not good for my hippocampus. So I think you have to ask yourself, does this thing that's bothering you worth your hippocampus? And that, to me, is a big factor on improving sleep. Now, there are also things like don't eat caffeine in the afternoon, make sure you exercise so your body is tired, keep your bedroom quiet and clean and dark. These are common sense things that if people do, they will improve their sleep.
Is there any value to trying to micromanage? Because now a lot of people use sleep trackers and the like. I sleep on a cooling pad on my mattress that automatically tracks my sleep every night, and it differentiates from the amount of delineates the amount of REM sleep that I've gotten versus the amount of deep sleep, as if there's like an actionable component there. Do you think that this is something that the science has borne out, or?
I think deep sleep is good, and this is the part that has the most benefits in terms of the cleaning system that happens in the brain. I wouldn't recommend people becoming obsessed with checking their sleep every night. You probably want to check it once a week, and then after a few weeks, just sleep. Don't be obsessed about how many hours you got.
Is there? I remember reading an animal study, like it was in mice a couple years ago, that found, I believe it was in mice, that found that like when a mouse slept on one side versus the other, it seemed to accelerate or make more efficient the brain's cleansing process.
Yes, I have heard that study as well. I wouldn't go that far. I think it's important that you get a good night's sleep. So I wouldn't worry about sleeping on the left or right. I think make sure you get enough sleep. There may be some benefit for one side or the other. However, there's no solid science to back that up. That's good. That's the small. That goes to the point of 5 major pillars of brain health and a lot of minor things.
No, I so appreciate that because, I, as somebody who for a long time had back problems, I would always hear, well, it's better for your back to sleep on your back. And I'm like, well, I can't sleep on my back. And if I try to sleep on my back, I'm just going to spend more time, tossing and turning and cursing the fact that I can't sleep on my back. So I sleep on my stomach, and I found ways to make it work for me. I prop my hips up and whatever, and I sleep amazing on my stomach. Whether or not it's better for me to sleep on my back, it doesn't matter. If you're not sleeping as well, then it's defeating the purpose.
Absolutely. The thing we haven't talked about is brain training. Like, what about brain training? Does brain training work? What brain training is good? I think that's the one area that we haven't touched yet.
Yeah, let's go there because there's a lot of people. There's this lore that Sudoku and crossword puzzles are somehow going to magically save you from being diagnosed one day with Alzheimer's disease. What's the truth there about brain training?
Brain training stimulates your brain, and it's good for developing and stretching different cognitive capacities. Your brain's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Your brain actually likes to be challenged because when you push your brain, when you get frustrated with it is a Sudoku or any other learning process, learning a new language, that's when new synapses are formed. Now, the question is, if you do Sudoku every night, are you going to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease? Yes and no. The reason I say yes is because these interventions have been shown to increase the size of hippocampus, without a doubt. See, there's a part of the brain called the cortex, which is the outer layer of the brain. It's like a blanket that covers all other brain areas. And then deep in the brain, we have hippocampus, one on the right, one on the left. Cortex and hippocampus are parts of the brain that are important for your cognitive functions. So whether you use reading, writing, typing, putting together a podcast, doing your taxes, dancing, whatever it is that requires you to have higher brain functions depends on your cortex and hippocampus. Now, different parts of cortex and different parts of hippocampus are important for different functions. For example, 8 or 10 parts of the brain form a network that are important for memory. Another network is important for language. Another network is important for attention. Another network is for sitting there doing nothing, like just sit there, enjoy the ocean or listen to music and just do nothing. Now, these networks can increase in size when you stimulate them regularly. Let's say you decide to learn Italian, and every time you learn a new word, and every time you forgot a word and you read it again, you're creating little synapses in your brain. It's a beautiful thing. Just imagine like the neurons are coming together and extending and then forming, you see another neuron and they connect. A brain is a busy place. It's not like an open space for things to grow. All the different parts of the brain are accounted for. So then you have to actually push to create these new synapses. And how does a neuron know where to go? These are the things that are so exciting at a molecular level. But we know at a clinical level that when you learn a new language, you grow the size of the hippocampus and the parts of the cortex that are important for that. Now, if you learn a new language, or if you do difficult Sudokus, or if you do something else that requires training to get better at, like learn how to play the piano, you increase the number of synapses in those parts of the brain. But if you, at the same time, have a sedentary lifestyle, you sleep 4 hours a night, you snore and have sleep apnea that's not been treated, you have a stressful life, you eat junk food, you do all those things, don't expect that half an hour a day of brain training is going to somehow miraculously help you not get Alzheimer's disease. It will not. You need to work on multiple fronts in order to fight the effects of aging in your brain. And brain training is one of them. So if you do brain training in the setting of these other things, you'll see remarkable results. If you do brain training in the presence of multiple risk factors, you see small results. You will see results. You will get better at anything you do, whether it's playing the piano, learning a language, Sudoku. You definitely get better with training. I mean, would you argue with that?
No, I wouldn't. Is this what's sometimes referred to as the cognitive reserve?
Yes. Cognitive reserve means that when you do different brain training, you increase the number of synapses, and that increase in brain capacity makes you more resilient against the effects of aging and Alzheimer's disease in your brain. So you can increase your brain reserve, which means how much brain you have. See, people think that you die with as many neurons that you were born with, or that you just keep losing neurons. This is not true. We have learned that a person in their 70s can still create new neurons in their hippocampus, especially with things like exercise. So our ability to generate new neurons doesn't fade, doesn't go away, it's still present. And we can have more neurons, more synapses, more connections in the brain, more blood vessels in the brain. We can do all those things. So brain reserve means like a retirement fund. How much money you're going to put in your retirement fund, and keeping in mind that your money it compounds over time. So when you establish a new habit, such as don't eat junk food, over time that benefit in the brain compounds, and your brain is a healthier brain. Whereas if you every day add a tax to your brain by eating junk food every day. So keep in mind that there's no one magic bullet that will do everything. Brain training is one of the 5 most important things. And as long as you do it as a part of a general approach to brain health, you will see great results. Keep in mind, your brain is very similar to your teeth and your heart. You know all the things you need to do for your heart. You're supposed to check your cholesterol. You need to, watch your blood pressure. You need to make sure you're not obese. These are like common sense things that we've learned. And as a result of that, people have learned to prevent heart attacks. We know that so much of heart attack is preventable. And we talk about your teeth. You take care of your teeth. And taking care of teeth is not just one thing. You brush, you floss, you go to your dentist, if there are cavities, you take care of them early on. Same thing with your liver. There are things you could do to take care of your liver or your kidneys. There are things that people don't talk about, but there are things that are good for your liver and kidney. It turns out that the things that are good for your brain health are also good for your heart health, your kidney health, your liver health, your skin, and your sex life. These because all your organs are made of cells. The unit in each organ, your brain, your eye, your heart, your skin, your liver, your kidney, is a cell. And a cell has needs ATP. And the part of the cell that generates ATP, generates energy, is called mitochondria. These little energy-producing factories inside each cell increase in number when you exercise, and they decrease in number when you have a sedentary lifestyle. If you have poor lifestyle habits, the mitochondria get old. Your mitochondria become boring looking. And the problem is that as you have poor lifestyle choices and your mitochondria become senescent of mitochondria is that not only they don't generate ATP anymore, they generate free radicals. They generate inflammation. So they become part of the problem. Not only do they help less, not only the cells have fewer mitochondria, the old-looking mitochondria generate a lot of reactive oxygen species, which is a form of inflammation. And mitochondria are present in every cell in your body, everywhere, from head to toe, including your brain. Now, 4 of the 5 pillars of brain health, the exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, are all the things that help individual cells all throughout your body. The brain training is the one extra element for your brain. And your brain depends on optimal functioning of your heart, your kidney, your muscles. Your brain is in direct communication with the rest of your body. This is something most people don't realize. They think that the brain sits above the neck and it's its own world, and then the organs below the neck have their own world. But if you have heart problems, your brain suffers. If you don't have enough blood to your brain, it suffers. If you have liver problems, your brain suffers because ammonium levels increase. If you have kidney problems, your brain suffers because the electrolytes are not balanced, and that affects the brain. If your muscles are sort of sitting there and not active, they fade, they develop sarcopenia, then there's fewer of the protective factors that can help the brain, like myokines. And so each organ below your neck has a direct communication in the brain. Of guts, if you have any problem with your guts, your brain is definitely affected. And in order to have a perfect looking brain, you need to have a perfect looking body organs. And these days we know how to take care of our body organs. We know what to do about the heart, the kidney, the gut. These things are not secret anymore. It's not controversial. It's not controversial that junk food is bad for your gut. It's not. Nobody argues that poor gut health leads to poor brain functions. This is not controversial. We need to be clear. And so when you do these 5 pillars of brain health, you work your brain, help your brain, but you work also all the other supporting organs below the neck that work with the brain directly. And that's why you can definitely reduce the effects of aging in your brain and in your body. One thing I love about going outside to exercise is when I see other adults who are much older than me who do better than I do. Like I did a triathlon once. I was so proud of myself. I had finished swimming in a mile and a half in the ocean, and I had done 26 miles of biking, and I was doing 10 miles of running. And I was getting very close, and I looked to my side, and I said, a gentleman who was clearly in his 80s was going to pass me. At one hand, I said, no way. You are 30 years older than me. I'm not going to let you do that. But at the same time, I admired the guy. I had so much respect for him that he had completed a triathlon, and he was about to beat me. Of course, I killed myself to make sure it didn't happen. But I thought to myself, I'm going to be him when I get to my 80s. So the fact that lifestyle changes can keep you healthy and strong is beyond any doubt. And what we have learned recently, and the breakthrough in my field, has been that we can take care of our brain. There's a paradigm shift with the way we look at the brain. The brain is not going to fade and just go away in every person who gets old. There may be like a little 5% decline, but 95% of the brain is going to be strong. And the more you challenge it and the more you take care of your brain health, the healthier brain you will have when you get to your golden years.
That's incredible. I was, I had a similar experience. I was working out at a gym in Las Vegas recently, and there were 2 gentlemen who were clearly in their late 80s working out together, Lenny and Mel. I introduced myself to them. I was like, I just want to say you guys are super inspiring, and I hope when I'm in, I hope, first of all, I hope I make it to my late 80s, or however. I asked them how old they were. I think one was like 87, and the other was 89. And there were 2 homies. They were good friends. Couple of old Jews from New York who now lived in Vegas and were living out their golden years, and they were in the gym together, and they looked forward to it multiple times a week. They would meet up, they would go to the gym. You get that cognitive social stimulation, and they were throwing weights around. They didn't really look like they knew what they were doing from a weightlifting standpoint, but it didn't even matter. I wasn't I was just in awe of the fact that they were there doing it, and that they were seemingly deriving so much joy from the process, and and it was really inspiring. I had to go and introduce myself to them, to ask them like what the secret is, like what is the secret to your motivation to be here at this age, because my dad is in his late 70s and he's never stepped foot in a gym in his life, and me and my brothers were begging constantly. We're like, we'll try anything in the book to get him, to do anything physical, and and it's just not his bag. But yeah, I love seeing older people exercise. It's so important.
People like your father who walk a lot, that's good too, as long as they are active. I mean, it doesn't have to be weight training, and it doesn't have to be running a marathon. If you walk every day, that's great.
He doesn't even do that, but he stays stimulated in other ways. I think another really important thing, what I've gathered from the brilliant advice that you just dropped, is that the needs of each organ system are not necessarily distinct. Like, people shouldn't be overwhelmed by this, right? Like catering to the needs of each organ system. Actually, when you zoom out, the recommendations are fairly obvious and fairly aligned from organ system from organ to organ. Would you agree with that?
Yes. In fact, once I was watching public television, I was just watching a random program. It was about how to reduce the risk of prostate cancer. And the gentleman who was talking said, you have to exercise, you have to eat a healthy diet, you have to stress less, you have to sleep, you have to meditate. I was thinking, meditate? What does meditating have to do with prostate cancer? And it dawned on me that he's telling people the same things as when I give lectures about brain health. And I've seen my dermatology friends talk to their patients about how to have a healthier skin. If you want a youthful looking skin, you have to reduce stress. You have to sleep well. You have to make sure that you exercise. All the things I tell people about brain health are the things that dermatologists tell their patients about having a beautiful, vibrant skin. And just like you said, so it's not a secret that you have to sort of have a system for working on your skin, a system for working on your kidney and this. I actually use that sometimes to talk with people who were not so much into brain health, but I know, for example, a lot of men in their 50s, 60s are always interested in sex. So if I felt like they were not listening to me about the importance of brain health, I said, listen, I'm going to tell you 4 things that are extremely important for your performance in bed, both in terms of actual erection and sexual function and libido. Are you interested? All of a sudden, the light bulb will go on and say, tell me. And I tell them the exact 4 things. Obviously, brain training is not a part of that. But if they do those 4 things, I'll be happy.
That tracks. I mean,
and they were excited to do that because, everything depends on blood flow. Blood flow to every organ ensures that that organ functions well. So your skin, your brain, your heart, your kidney, your bones, they all need nutrients. They need oxygen, they need blood flow. One of the things that people don't appreciate is that your bones have a lot of malleability and change. And there are many things you do to make your bones healthier. Exercise, eating right. I mean, you should take vitamin D and calcium as a special something for your bones. And when your bones healthier, they release hormones such as osteocalcin that are beneficial for the brain. So each organ, when it functions optimally, has benefit for the brain, and the things you do are good for all organs anyway. So you need to really question yourself if it's smart to eat junk food for whichever reason you want that matter to you. If you worry about your bone and risk of osteoporosis and having hip fractures, do it for your bones. If you worry about prostate cancer, do it for your prostate. If you're worried about skin, do it for your skin. And deep in mind, realize that you're helping everything. And that to me is earth-shattering. It's a paradigm shift with the way we look at aging. And the thing is, this is not like, trust me on this. This is something we see already. See, in parts of Europe, the high-income countries in Europe like Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the incidence of Alzheimer's disease in the past 25 years has dropped by 20%. 20% fewer Alzheimer's cases in those countries. Mostly because when you go there, people are doing these things. I was in Amsterdam for Alzheimer's conference 2 years ago, and I couldn't help to just admire how so many older adults in their 80s were on bikes, and in front of the bikes was like a little basket big enough for the grandchildren to sit in front. And so they had this gentleman who was like in his 80s was biking through the city with 2 kids sitting in front, all having fun. And in parts of the United States also we have seen a drop in the incidence of Alzheimer's disease. So this is not like hypothetical. It has already happened, and I think it's a question of time that we will see this in our cities, in our country, that people are going to get to their 80s and they're going to be going to the gym, go to book clubs, play golf, participate in social activities, contribute to the society, and just go to their 90s and just one day die. Dying is not the end of decline. Dying is a switch that goes on. There's programmed cell death, and when time's to die, you die. You don't die as a result of gradual decline, which then results in death.
Interesting.
Yeah. So most people think that you die because you just fall apart, and then you die. No. With aging, a little bit of decline, 5%, 2%. You could question, these people were talking in their 80s, they're doing well. And then at some point, it's time to go. There's the lifespan. We all have a predefined lifespan. If nobody lives to 130, and most people live to 90s if everything's perfect, and some people go over 100. But our lifespan is, 90s. And it's important to keep in mind that you shouldn't think that you're going to go down and down and down and die. You should think of having a perfect life, vibrant, exercise, bike, hike, jog, do everything, and then just die and get over it.
Hopefully while having sex or doing something.
Or biking or something.
Wow. What about, how should people think about, because, today, these days, people tend to be marketed to 24/7. There's a lot of ads on television for brain-boosting supplements. How do people better identify what is legit and worth considering, maybe even taking, versus what is snake oil?
Yes, I think there's a lot of misinformation about the benefits of supplements. There is no miracle cure, and don't ever think that if you take a supplement that alone would fix things. I do see some ads, for example, Preventable. I was particularly interested in that supplement because there's so much ads about it. Every channel, everywhere you go, there are ads for it. And so it turns out that there's no placebo-controlled study. The only study of sort is something that the company has released, very limited data, no placebo control, and this is an example of how marketing can make something a bestseller without any evidence. If you market to 10 million people, and even 1 million of them take it, then you're doing well.
You've got a hit product.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, because you've sold 1 million bottles, then you could say you're a bestseller. But you're a bestseller not because you have solid material, is because of the power of marketing. I'm not saying that it's fish oil or it's not good for you. I'm saying that from my review of literature, there's not a single study that has shown significant benefits of Preventable for elderly with memory loss, objectively improving their memory. The ad shows that the memory bars are going up, but there's this is like illustration. It's not the real data. And you would think that after more than 10 years and millions of people taking it, there will be some study. And again, there are other commercials for supplements because so many people worry about it. And unfortunately, there's not enough scientific data for most of them.
And the fact that these supplement companies are typically so, not calling any one brand in particular out, but they're so predatory, and they're raking all this dough, And still they haven't funded like the gold standard randomized placebo-controlled trial to prove the efficacy of their own product.
Well, that makes you wonder
very disingenuous.
if they've done it and there was no data, so I didn't mention it.
Yeah.
You're right. If millions of people have taken it and you've had 10 years of this being available in the market, somebody would have done a placebo-controlled study.
Yeah.
Either that was not done because they're selling, why bother, or it was done and didn't show results, in which case they're not going to publicize it.
What about basic supplements, like, for example, B vitamins? You mentioned fish oil. What are your thoughts on those that are fairly inexpensive, widely available?
Yeah. B12 is a very important vitamin for the brain. It's omnipresent in your brain and your nerve endings. And low B12 is associated with every neurological disease there is. Memory loss, confusion, weakness, everything you call, there's a B12 deficiency can cause. So if you have low B12 levels, you will benefit from B12 supplementations. But if your B12 levels are normal, then you don't need extra B12. Same applies to vitamin D and thyroid and iron and zinc and a lot of other ones. I think there are many blood tests that you can take to determine your blood levels for various vitamins, and you should only take what's missing. For example, if you have low vitamin D, take vitamin D. If you have low vitamin B12, you take vitamin 12. Now, there's one supplement called omega-3 fatty acid, which seems to be particularly important for brain health. 40% of the membranes of neurons is made up of omega-3 fatty acids. 40%. And so this is one vitamin. It's not available in our bodies. We can't make it. We have to get it from outside sources. That's particularly important for the brain, for the eye, and for the heart. So that's the one supplement I take myself. There are no standard values established as optimal. There's a test called omega-3 index, which gives you some clues. You want it to be like 8 or higher. However, most government agencies have not established optimal level of omega-3 the same way it is for B12 vitamin D. As such, I take omega-3 fatty acid myself. This is the one supplement I take. I did a study myself many years ago, published in Nature, that showed that people who have higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids are less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. Now, it's not a placebo-controlled study, but since then, so many studies have provided compelling evidence for this one vitamin that I take myself, knowing that the biggest benefit for my brain health are those 5 pills of brain health.
Right.
I take my omega-3 acid, 1,000 milligram of DHA, EPA every day, knowing it's good for me. It's good for my skin, it's good for my heart, it's good for my eyes, my brain. So I take it. But I know that's a small component of what I do for my brain health.
Yeah, you're under no illusion that it's a magic bullet.
Yes, there is no magic bullet.
No magic bullet.
Because the things that cause problems in the brain are multifactorial. There's not one thing that causes brain problems. See, the problem with overemphasis of Alzheimer's disease pathology is to think that these plaques and tangles are the primary problem. And that's wrong. New studies have shown that the drugs that reduce amyloid levels do not help significantly patients who have early stages of Alzheimer's disease. If amyloid was the only factor and this drug removed 80% of the amyloid in the brain, then you would think the person will perk up. No. Patients continue to decline at a slightly lower rate than they would otherwise. So there is reduced inflammation, there is increased inflammation, reduced blood flow, reduced brain rinsing and cleaning happens in one bag, in one side, and then plaques and tangles on the other side. All of these contribute to brain shrinkage with aging. So with these plaques and tangles, lifestyle modifications do improve them, but we definitely know that these lifestyle things make your brain healthier and more beautiful. So let's work on them.
I love it. Well, The Invincible Brain, thank you for writing it. I wish we had it here on set, but it's available by the time this episode airs. People will be able to pick it up, but they can certainly pre-order it now. Thank you so much for coming out and sharing your wisdom with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I've got one last question for you, but before we get to that, where can people find you on social media and where can they pick up your new book?
My book, The Invincible Brain, is available everywhere books are sold. And I post on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. I also put 9-minute videos on YouTube. And I am done with an app and an online course that people can check out. If they search The Invincible Brain, I think a lot of my material will come up.
Amazing. Last question that gets asked everybody on the show. What does living a genius life mean to you?
I think you need to be happy. I think you need to find what makes you happy. We always talk about longevity as having more years, but I think it's important to have more life in the years you already have. You need to focus on what things give you pleasure and make you have a better life. It's important to have a sense of purpose in life, have a goal for the future that excites you for real. Like, I get excited to talk about brain health, prevention of Alzheimer's disease, because I feel I touch the lives of thousands of people around the world. That gives me pleasure, that gives me purpose, that makes me happy. People need to find out what makes them happy, what gives meaning to their life. And once they define that, they can reduce other things that are not in line with their passions. Many people these days are overworked and they're always running around not having enough time. And they are. The best solution for people like that is to eliminate things that are not important, to eliminate things that are not in line with their passions. If they eliminate things that are not necessarily in line with their purpose in life, then they can enjoy doing more things that give them pleasure. And that, to me, is a secret of happy life and enjoying life. Have arranged things around you so you do more of the things that you really feel excited. You know, like, I sometimes talk to my friends and they're so excited, for example, about economy. And they can go on and on about their economy. I'm interested in economy, but in a side way. You know, some people are so interested about what goes on in China or Middle East, or what goes on with global warming or political parties. They really feel passionate about it. And if this is what you feel passionate, then go for it. Do things in line with what you feel passionate about.
And prune away that which you are not.
Yes. In order to have peace of mind, you need to have some free time.
Yeah.
You need to have a buffer zone.
You have a finite amount of room. You know, it's like a closet or like a junk drawer. Like, you don't have infinite room, right? Time is finite in the day, in your life. And so, yeah, I think this is wonderful advice.
I think, like you said, you need to realize that you need to unload and trim away things that are not super important to you, and you need to allow some downtime. I think in this part of the world, we all work to max. Like, we're late for the next thing that we're supposed to do, and everybody's been late, everybody's behind, everybody's impatient. And that's not the case everywhere in the world. Even in Europe, and especially if you go parts of Africa, you know, so many people are living life. They don't have internet, they don't have the latest gadgets, but they're laughing. You know, I'm not saying that we should not do advanced things, but we need to keep it in balance and take care of ourselves as the highest priority things.
Wonderfully put. Wow, that was such a great, such fantastic wisdom, so actionable that you shared with us. And I love the way that you answered that question. So thanks again for coming out,
My
flying
pleasure.
out all the way out here from DC. And thank you guys for listening. Share this episode with friends and loved ones that may benefit from it. And I will catch you on the next episode. Peace, everybody. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.